Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar titled Modernize Auto Loan Overpayment Refunds and Reduce Cost in Today's Economy. My name is Marge Martin, and I will be moderating our webinar today. At OMBI, we help companies like yours manage and modernize consumer and workforce disbursements for corporate clients. We will be recording this webinar, and we will send you a recording once it's done. Just a few ground rules. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the chat window and we'll address them during the Q&A session. We will be posting several polling questions, and if you answer them, it actually helps us customize the webinar more towards your needs. With that, I'd like to introduce our speakers. The first one is Tony McGee. He is Senior Director of Market Management in OMBI's product organization. Tony has been in the payments industry for over 15 years. He is currently responsible for helping shape OMBI's strategic initiatives, maintaining a close eye on market direction, and making sure OMBI stays ahead in the payment industry. He is awesome at understanding our clients' business needs and execution of product line strategies and programs to meet these needs. Outside of work, Tony loves to landscape, he coaches youth football, and loves to travel. I'd like to introduce John Mason. He is the Senior Vice President of Operations for Westlake Financial. John joined Westlake in 2004 as part of the remarketing department, and Mr. Mason has held various leadership roles in the operations department since 2007, focusing on process improvement, technologies, facilities management, and project management. Mr. Mason graduated from George Mason University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Decision Science and Management Information Systems and a minor in Information Technology. He brings prior experience from his work at the Innovation Technology of Virginia, InTech, where he served as a project manager. With that, I'd like to introduce both speakers and the webinar. We'll get started on modernizing auto loan overpayment refunds and reduce costs in today's economy. And with that, Tony, I'm going to open the agenda and and you can just kind of go over what we're going to discuss.
Yeah, thanks, Marge. John, that's an impressive background. I had no idea you had all those degrees. That's nice.
It's
That's awesome.
A lot of letters. It's not that impressive.
A lot of letters. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll take 30, 45 minutes of your time today, and just want to present you with some information about the current landscape in our industry, go through a few key items, and hopefully answer some of your questions if you have them. Our agenda today is focused on auto lending, the landscape and modernization of payments in that particular sector. We'll talk a little bit about some use cases, specifically consumer refunds and how those are evolving. We'll also talk about the benefits of a digital-first solution, which is very important in today's economic environment. And leading into that, reducing costs, thinking about ways to partner versus build as you consider ways to digitize your business and make key updates to your payment flows. So we'll get into a little bit of a perspective on whether partnering or building is right for you. And then we'll talk a little bit about speed to market, agility with less investment, and how, again, partnering may be able to assist you in that effort. Okay. Mars, next slide. All right.
Okay.
It's a busy slide, lots going on here. But the most important piece that I want to highlight here is the payments ecosystem has always been complex, and it's evolving more rapidly than ever as consumer preferences change. The ecosystem, when it comes to getting payment to a recipient, a customer, a business, can involve banks, processors, production facilities, potentially networks like MasterCard is one example. And at one time, issuing and mailing a check may have been the norm and the expectation, still is in many cases today. But factors like the demand for immediacy and convenience are driving advancements and therefore complexity. You see on the screen here payment modalities like virtual cards, push to card, which is a form of instant payment, ACH transactions, global transfers, wires and ACHs as consumers are moving around the globe and may or may not be, in country for domestic payments. And then checks are still prevalent today, but this is just one set of examples of the types of modalities that consumers are used to receiving payments. The number of ways to make these payments and then the number of ways that consumers are spending has grown and changed. Even in the last couple of years, we've seen a huge shift toward digitization and a preference for immediacy and that sort of, a real-time engagement, right? So that said, to innovate, automotive lenders need to be flexible, fast, and efficient. But when it comes to delivering modern payment experiences, many lenders move slower than they'd like, pay more than they need to, and shoulder more administrative costs than maybe they should. Streamlining payment processes can help lenders stay agile, reduce costs and errors, and deliver faster experiences. The process has been the same for many, many years. And honestly, the complexities have always been there, like I've mentioned before. But technology is really advancing the way consumers expect to receive payments and how they expect to spend those funds in a variety of ways. We're going to talk about that as we go along throughout this webinar. John and I will share some perspectives on from our own angles in terms of how we operate in the industry. But we'll focus primarily on the consumer refund and how those payments are distributed. John, anything you want to add here as far as what you're seeing from your own perspective in terms of consumer expectations and maybe even your own expectations?
Sure. And I think you hit it a little bit on the head there, where you're saying it's just the industry is changing so much in the last 12 to 18 months. One of the things I continue to see now, which really surprised me, is even a lot of people even requesting if we can take a Cash App payment or Cash App card, and that's something that's fairly new for, like, it was P2P before, and now they're trying to get it to where they can make their loan payments that way, right? You'd be surprised
Right.
how many calls I come across where the customer is asking us, can you take my Cash App payment? And
Yeah.
as someone who wants to take money, I want to be able to say, yes, I can. So you need to be focusing. It moves so fast. You need to be open to all those different types, because any thing you can't do or take is a missed opportunity.
Absolutely. And as the generations shift and more technology comes into play, that's just simply driving it organically, right? And you mentioned the Cash App piece, that peer-to-peer, that immediacy piece, that ability to get the money in their hands both directions continues to push our industry further and further toward digitization and having more tools beyond the legacy check environment that we've always lived in. All right.
Yeah, totally.
Next slide.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, I think this sort of supports what we were just talking about. 70% of consumers prefer a digital automotive refunds. They want to get something digital now. Getting a check, getting it lost in the mail, it's tough. They want digital quotes. We want the whole thing to be smooth. Loan refinancing, monthly payments, even the overpayments. They want to get their refunds digitally. Now that can be challenging, but it's not tough. There's ways to do that. What are your thoughts on the refunds aspect of it, Tony?
Yeah, so our industry, we're at Ombi, we're seeing a high demand in companies wanting to convert from the legacy, slow, expensive check processing environment where, and we'll talk about this as the slides go on, but where there are a number of hidden costs and a number of things that I think are often overlooked. And honestly, the overpayment refund category is one area that we're seeing a huge trend in terms of digitization when it comes to returning things like overpayments. A lease end, a loan end, or any type of credit that sits on an account that needs to get back to the consumer, those are digitizing rapidly, and we're seeing a huge trend in that direction. And it's saving companies money and honestly delighting the consumers, whether they are returning, leaving for now, or really just or staying with the company today. But the bottom line is reducing costs, digitizing these payments that are legacy check payments, et cetera, is really a trend for us. So it's no surprise that 70% of consumers prefer digital automotive refunds in this particular category. I think that's probably the case across a multitude of different industries.
Sure, that makes sense. That's what I'm seeing too.
Good. All right. Next slide, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, you can see here where it's again, we're talking about digital payments are accelerating. If we look back to 2000, we can see that 57% of them non-cash payments are checks. We used to get a ton of checks into our lockbox at the banks. It used to be 30, 40%. Now we're down to like 7% today. So that'll tell you how much just everything has been shifting, right? Things changed, prepaid cards in 2012. 2018, ACH debit, still a big piece of things happening, but myself included, 50% of my payments now are off my digital wallet on my phone. I don't use my ACH card much anymore. I entered it in once and I go to the store and I'm good to go. And everything is moving towards real-time payments, and there's just more options, and it gets tougher and tougher to keep up with the speed of this because there is so many different options and so many different things you can do, and you don't want to be stuck. One of the other companies only still able to take checks or things like that. I mean, when was the last time you wrote a check, Tony?
I think we were talking about this the other day. It's been a while. I honestly have lost some of the skill sets around it. It feels like writing a check. It's been so long. I can't, when I think about like you're writing out the amount, $1,042 and this, and then all the different things that have to go into the boxes and sign on the back, et cetera. Honestly, it's like the dust is on the checkbook for sure, but it's something that I really don't want to deal with. Used to be the norm. And then honestly, when you mail a check, you don't know whether it's going to get there or not. And I think really the check process, especially for the consumers that are younger. I have a 17-year-old daughter that honestly does not want to touch a check. She has no use for checks. She's like, I want that payment into my whatever wallet right now. Attention spans are shorter, all that stuff. And you're seeing that in these trends, right? 2021, 74% of consumers prefer digital payments. And that big number there on the right, 2026 forecasts, real-time payments projected to quadruple. I believe it, and we're seeing it in our industry today. And honestly, if you'd asked me a year and a half ago, was that real? I was kind of thinking, it's moving a little bit slower than I thought.
Right.
But now I believe it. Things are moving now. Technology is really taking hold. So yeah, anyway, to answer your question, it's been a while since I've written a check. So
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm definitely in the same boat there.
absolutely. Well, that said, yeah, okay, go ahead, Mark. Yeah, next slide. Yeah. John, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, this makes sense to me. The automotive lending landscape is changing. This is true, right? It's including myself. I have to get a new car soon, or even used car potentially, depending on what it is, right? Interest rates are going higher. It's not 2.9, 1.9, or 0% anymore. It's starting 7%, going up to 9. That is going to seriously change the industry on how many other people can afford to get cars. How fast they get cars, the value of cars, and it's going to change how companies have to do business. We have to really look at the bottom line and figure out how we can reduce cost, automate, and make things just flow better. The bottom line is going to be important as there's a dip in the amount of cars that are being purchased. So it's definitely interesting times ahead. And we just need to focus on digitizing and automating what you can as a company to be able to manage it.
Yeah. As lending decreases, as consumers are buying less or potentially buying less, there's businesses need to look at different ways to save money, right? So, the industry's changing, and I think some of the topics that we're talking about today are often overlooked, but there's opportunities out there to make that as easy as possible. So, yeah. Slide. So the way forward for auto lenders, we're here to talk about that a little bit more today. John mentioned the decreased lending volume and increased regulatory oversight. We are seeing a lot of different industry trends out there where that regulatory oversight is driving some changes. As things get more expensive, as the economy necessitates different ways to look at how consumers may be qualified for loans, et cetera, that regulatory oversight is really coming into play. So digital experiences can increase consumers' preferred choice. So that is driving companies to look at different ways to address not only their costs, but also stay compliant and relevant in today's changing environment. So a digital first payment strategy can help lenders reduce costs, streamline their administrative processes, innovate faster to better serve their consumers in today's economic climate. And I think, you can Google this and look at different articles and reports that are out there. But the focus on reducing costs and addressing certain regulatory items that are coming into play, especially with speed to pay and really taking care of that consumer. There's all kinds of undertones out there that are forcing lenders and businesses that are adjacent to automotive to really focus on streamlining their processes. Okay. So let's just take a look at the typical auto loan overpayment refund experience for lenders. John, I know you've got a lot of experience with this today. We've talked about this, but the lender's pain points can include a lot of things that tend to be overlooked. Checks can cost anywhere from $3 to $12, and in some cases even more. And it's not just the paper, it's not just the postage. You have to think about the customer service. You have to think about the employees that are involved in preparing the check, the partners that you have in the process. Lost and stolen checks, right? That's a very, very common theme. And then what do you do with the money when that check is expired? I think that's often overlooked as well. That escheatment liability can be a heavy investment in administrative processes to handle that unclaimed property. Typically, a check is not exactly easily identifiable, especially with today's junk mail and all the different things that we receive in the mail, whether it be, in many cases, slower and slower as the USPS system continues to seem like it gets slower and slower. But that branding and that messaging and the opportunity for engagement is lacking with a typical check experience. And then, I mentioned earlier the customer service related to stopping payments, exception handling, return mail, et cetera, et cetera. Bottom line is a typical check experience does not solve for the consumer demand that's out there today, which involves immediacy, engagement, and honestly, just that real-time satisfaction of getting their payment back to them. John, what do you think?
No, I think the slide says a lot. It really resonates with me, to be honest. You have all kinds of factors. You touch base on them, and I'll sort of touch base, I guess, a little bit again, because I'm the same mindset of when I see this, I'm putting all the pieces together. You have to send out the physical check that costs money. You don't know if it's going to get there. You have to make sure you have the correct address. You need to validate your address. You need to make sure that it's not something that's going to be overlooked. Then after it, for the escheatment process, right, it's different for each state. It's not the same. You have to know the guidelines and rules for each state. If something hasn't been cashed, to report it to them, and you have to keep track of that and manage it. It's just no fun. it's a lot of effort and a lot of work, and the question should be, why am I spending my time on this? That's when I look at it, I'm like, why am I spending my time on this? There's got to be an easier way to do this.
Yep.
So but this slide says a lot to me. It really hits home.
Yeah, and there are easier ways to do it. I think there's less cost, less costly ways to do it. So we look at here to kind of take that a step further. Checks take a long time to receive, and I think that's probably getting longer and longer. Like I mentioned before with the USPS, I think when you intermix it into all the different pieces of mail that I get a lot of junk mail. I get a lot of things that look alike. Easy to overlook a check, right? Lack of clear communication about the purpose of the check. Not everybody understands why they're receiving that payment. Honestly, checks look very similar to in today's world to a lot of junk mail that comes in that's advertising something else, right? So it can be confusing. Be surprised at how many checks get thrown away in the mail and maybe even never even received. Having to deposit that check and wait for it to clear. I mentioned my daughter earlier, she's 17. She does not want to deposit a check. She doesn't want to go into a bank. She doesn't even want to do the remote capture aspect of it. She's like, I don't want this check, right? And again, that check gets misplaced or lost due to change of address. You mentioned that earlier. And bottom line is, over time, that increases consumer complaints. And that's really where I talked about some of the regulatory oversight earlier. Consumers want digital instant solutions. And the regulatory environment is starting to kind of come after this and look at it and say, I want to reduce consumer complaints. I want to satisfy the consumers that are out there. And a digital solution is going to help evolve that for businesses. All right. Next slide, Marge.
Okay.
Yeah. Looks like we have a few questions here. What are the top business issues? I think this is for everyone else to potentially answer during the survey, but let's see, we got A, managing payment disbursement and operations, B, achievement management, C, fraud monitoring, and D, customer experience service satisfaction, NPS.
So the poll is open now. I will ask everybody to participate if possible. That again will help us customize the webinar for you.
What do you think, John?
I'm always going to pick achievement management, man. That just is like nails on a chalkboard to me. The people it takes, the resources, it's just, I hate it.
It's overlooked. It's overlooked.
Yeah.
It's a word that I think only coming into the payments world I ever really even understood what it meant. But it's a busy word, but something that is often overlooked. What do you do with that money afterward?
Right. Well, I'm going to close the poll. We've got a few that have shared, and I will share the poll right now. And I don't think the results are. I think it's what we usually see. I'm surprised achievement management wasn't higher, but that's.
Well, the overall operation, right? Kind of all.
It is. That is a piece too. Okay, so you have to have postage. You have to have the right address. You have to have physical people that are sending the checks out. You have to have a stock of checks. So I can understand why someone might say, you know what, that's the first 50, 60% of it, and then the last piece, which happens over time and years. So operations, disbursement, and disbursement is a chunk too. That just isn't what gets to me, but I can certainly understand why someone would choose that.
Yeah.
Totally get it. Yeah. Good. We'll have a few more of these, so hopefully the audience will think about different ways to answer the questions, but we'll have a couple more as we go. So the modernized payment process is digital. And here's some benefits that we think are important to think about. So delivering the payment, sending branded payments via email, that's one way. We can send branded payments via text message. We can send them via different different ways, right? From a wallet perspective, et cetera, but really think about the fact that the consumer has a digital tool in their hands. In the case of just about everybody I know, it feels like 95% of the time there's a phone sitting in somebody's hand at all times, right? So making those payments digitally is very satisfying to consumers, right? Choice. I think that's one thing we haven't talked a little bit about, but the first slide that I went through earlier had, you had different ways to send somebody money. Some of them were instantaneous. Some of them were, things that we're very used to today, ACH payments, et cetera. But think about, John talked about the Cash App, right? Think about PayPal. You think about Venmo. You think about all these different ways that consumers want to receive their money. You want to give them more choice, right? And that can leave a lasting impression on your end recipients, your customers. So giving them the optionality, we're seeing that across a bunch of different industries, and it's really helping those businesses look and feel like they're in the modern era, right? And giving that consumer the ability to make a choice and putting it in their hands. You can, when you're communicating digitally, you can engage your recipients, right? So that self-service and that interaction with your brand. There's many more opportunities to engage with your recipients, your customers, when you're delivering something digitally, right? You can, you've got much more real estate. You've got links you can put in that delivery. You've got advertisements. You've got things that are just much more engaging, right? Than the age-old tired check, right? So something to think about there. The engagement piece is very, very important in the digital delivery piece. And then as you work with partners or you build new services, you can automate some different things around offloading things like the infamous escheatment topic, and also working with partners that manage the fraud aspects associated with those payments. And then once you're in that process and you've gone digital, you've changed the way you're delivering these payments, you can continue to create and build on that as the consumer demand changes around all the different wallets that are coming into the industry, and different ways that consumers are driving that digital engagement, right? So, John, I was going to ask you from a check perspective. I know you've got a lot of history there. What's fraud look like from a check perspective? Has that been increasing for you?
Tremendously.
Yeah.
Fraud is running rampant right now, so much so that it's very concerning. We've had issues that I had to initiate new protocols to control for. I've even spoken with the USPS mail service lately, and they've admitted to me that like their trucks are starting to get robbed more. So it's very concerning. I have some open tickets with some authorities and different things for our business because we're not a small business. So there's a lot going on that was sort of eye-opening, and chain of custody is really important now. Controlling that, making sure nothing was left out. It can be a problem.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have the statistics in front of us here, but I think a previous viewpoints had check fraud, and it can be eye-opening. Is just going rampant because it's kind of a low-hanging fruit item now, where it's like, there's tons of different ways to change the look of a check and change amounts, and it's surprising how smart the fraudsters are these days, and yeah.
Yeah, it's happening, and it's confusing to a certain regard because you get checks being cashed at banks that aren't supposed to. So you're like, what's going on with the policies and procedures here? How does this even happen? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's confusing.
Yeah, we haven't talked a lot about the fraud side of checks here in this particular webinar, but it's something that I'm sure everybody is seeing a rise in. So,
well, I mean, the benefits of a digital first refund solution make sense in those regards, right? You can reduce the cost of issuing payments and eliminating the administrative process, which we talked about a little bit. The escheatment process, which everyone knows I'm not a fan of already on this call, hate it. You don't have to have a body keeping up with different rules, regulations for each state and managing it. offloading the customer service when they call in and say, hey, I was supposed to get a refund, never got it. Do you have my address? What happened? Can you send it again? Now you have 2 checks out there, you got to cancel one. You know, you miss the opportunity for doing different branded stuff, especially notes that we talked about, and emails, different advertisements too. If you have multiple companies like we do, there's opportunity there for asking if you need insurance, or if you need a GPS tracker for your car, different things like that. You can put in there for different affiliates.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you see on the recipient side?
Yeah, so and the stat in the upper right-hand corner there, 82% of consumers said a seamless refund experience influenced their decision to return to a service provider. So don't overlook that either, right? So maybe you do have an overpayment that you're making to a consumer that is done with a loan or done with whatever service they were buying from your business. Well, they're going to come back. They're going to buy more. They're going to have a need for something else. So when you think about that digital first refund solution, for example, if I'm a business that got that payment to the consumer, giving them choice, giving them options, giving them that immediacy and just a much more modern user experience, those recipients are going to come back, right? So the surveys that we've done demonstrate that. Giving them faster access to funds, giving them choice, giving them flexibility. Back to the mobile wallet piece, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all the different wallets that are out there. I'm probably not even capturing all of them at this point, but that payment experience, how they spend it, how they get that money. I know I've had some experiences just in the last year or so with some insurance claims, for example. I was offered choice. I was offered when I got that insurance claim payment, I received it immediately. I had some choice. I could have taken a check. I could have taken another form of payment, maybe a slower ACH payment, but I chose an instant delivery payment to my bank. And I think I was on a walk when I got that email. So opened up on my phone, got that payment. By the time I got back to my house, I had a few $1,000s in insurance claim in my account. That's memorable. That's something I would look at and go, hey, that's a digital first company. I should come back to them, right? For my needs in the future. So it's again an often overlooked thing, but this digitization of payments is a trend, and it's not going away as consumer preferences change. Next slide, Marge. Okay. It's a big one for you, John, right? You've been going through this process.
Yeah, this is something I can sort of dig into a little bit. The value of partnering versus building. This is definitely not for everyone, right? There's a value to being able to get done fast, get moving, and be to market, and that's usually partnering. If you have the resources and the time and the energy, building is something you could do. And actually, I'm in the process of finishing building. We are launching a company called NowPay, which is for payments. We designed our own platform, which there's a lot of different things we know now, right? We need to stay agile. We need to have speed within the market. We need to have all the different integrations, Apple, Google, Samsung, PayPal, all those things. Still take debit, still take credit cards, still do ACH. Figure out how to partner with someone that can do the refund process, right? Be hooked into different banks. It's all a lot, and you don't want to have to keep up with NACHA guidelines. You don't want to have to keep up with Visa guidelines. And all those different pieces. We've done it. It is not the road for many people. Years in the process, right? Most people, and my old philosophy always was to partner, but and that's what you should do. You should be focusing on your core business, not being crazy like me and starting a new company and going and doing all these things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as the industry evolves, right? Adding all these different payment modalities, digitizing these payments. There's companies that have their core business, and then there's businesses like us that have these capabilities that we're watching. And I know in my role, my responsibilities are to sort of look at what's on the horizon from a payment modality perspective and what consumers are looking for. So that there can definitely be a lot of benefit to partnering with businesses to help keep you on the forefront of technologies. So it means different things to different companies, but certainly, the payments landscape continues to evolve more rapidly than ever. So partnering might be a way for your business to sort of take that burden off of you and stay with the market in the future. So stat up there in 89%, a lot of bank and credit union execs said fintech partnerships are somewhat or very important to their financial institution. I think we're seeing a lot of that in our industry today for sure.
Yeah, not surprising at all.
Good. Poll question. So we'll do this again. What are your top priorities? Sorry, what are your top expectations for delivering a digital payments in 2023? A, delivering modern payment experiences with agility and speed. B, providing compliance expertise and fraud mitigation management. C, big word, escheatment management, offloading that risk and complexity, administrative burden. And then the branding and marketing, new avenues to engage customers. So we'll take a minute to answer that.
The poll is open, and again, if you can answer, that would be great. I understand sometimes people multitask, but if you could help us, that would be great.
Tony, while we're waiting, what would you choose on this one?
I'm going to go with delivering modern payment experiences, agility and speed. I think that's big today.
Yeah.
It's always the one, but.
Yeah, I think I would have gone with that one in this one too. Since I went with Sheeman last time, I would have gone with agility and speed. There's just so many different products coming on, and individually trying to set up all those different hooks can not be easily, if anyone's even tried to do one. So I think having that agility and speed and having it is very important.
Okay.
Just doing it as a payments company can be challenging. So
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to share the results.
all right, we're influencing people here, John. We got a sheetman in there now. It's in there. They want to offload the risk, the complexity, agility and speed. It's more important. I like it. Good.
Yeah.
Hopefully 1,000 people answered that question. We'll see.
Right.
So as you look to partner with businesses like us, you're looking to get to market faster. You're looking to stay agile with fast program deployments. I'm not going to read this whole slide. There's a lot on here, but you're looking for a business that presents you with a plan, presents you with a roadmap toward staying relevant in the digital space, right? And so these are some of the things that you should think about when it comes to working with a business that can help you there. Look at how they plan, how they project manage things, how they, go through the process with you, how they integrate with your technical requirements, right? That's a very important piece. There's options for low code, no code solutions. And sometimes businesses want to go all the way through a full technical integration. You want to look for a partner that can do both and keep you at the forefront there, and then support you through the transition, monitor your program, make sure that you've got the right support for the long run. So just want to make sure you guys have some key points to think about as you choose a provider and stay relevant in the market.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You got to pick the right partner to move fast. Someone will say they can get it done in 3 months, and then 12 months down the line, you didn't have an SLA and you didn't get it done. So it's very important to know who you're dealing with and make sure that they have expertise if you're going to partner. Yeah,
especially as the latest and greatest ways to pay comes on board. Mm-hmm. So we'll close this out. With a final poll question. Which, if any, aspects of your current payment operation would you be interested in offloading? Fulfillment of digital payment choices. B, escheatment management, again, the big one. C, fraud monitoring. We talked about how that influences checks today. D, customer service related to lost checks or fraud. And then hopefully we don't get any E's, but not sure. So we'll open it up for poll.
Poll is open. Again, if you all can participate, that would be great.
Yeah, I think if I was going to go with one on this one, I'd probably go, Ashim's always there for me, but the digital payment choices, that is really a tough little sucker to knock out right now. Lots of people say they can do it, but they really can't, or it's coming in a couple quarters. So being first to market with that type of choice is key right now, I think, to being able to offer something others people can't.
Do you use
Okay.
Cash App, John?
Do I personally, or do we as a company?
Do you personally?
I do not personally, but I do use Google, Apple, PayPal, Venmo. I use everything and the only reason I don't currently is because just I worry about the security of it currently, but I know they're putting a lot of resources into it because even 4 months ago, Cash App couldn't be used in an enterprise business, and now it can. Now they can pass the account number. So I know they've been focusing on it a lot.
A lot of younger people are using it. So
yeah.
All right, we're continuing to influence here. So we get out of our 1,000 responses, hopefully we got 100% on digital payment choices. Good. Okay. All right. Well, that's really our presentation today. Thank you for joining us. I think Marge will open it up to a few questions if there are any, and
yes, thank you. I did get two. The first one is, how can a payments partner handle the shipment management process? Our check vendor doesn't do that for us now, so what is the difference?
Yeah, so a partner like us actually stays on the forefront of all the different state requirements. John mentioned earlier that one of his pain points when it comes to the check process, and many banks don't take care of this by default, is keeping up with all the different state by state regulations. It's often overlooked that one state might have a requirement for a type of payment where that payment needs to be escheated back to the state. So that unclaimed fund or unclaimed property needs to be escheated back to the state within a year. And another state might have a rule that extends out to 3 years, for example. And then it can even vary by what the payment was for. Did they expect it? Was it their money? Is it, all those different things, right? So a payments provider that can take that off your plate by staying in front of those rules, having a digital solution that automates that process, reports it back to you, deals with the fallout when it comes to failures, et cetera. That's what you're looking for. And so you're looking for more of a one-stop shop that's going to take on that burden and make sure that you're staying relevant there. You agree, John?
Totally. I totally agree. Each state is different, and then you have to have different people that manage it and track it. It's not like it's just takes care of itself. You have your spreadsheet or your systems that you have to be able to keep track of how much money and when it needs to be reported, and if they fall on different dates, it's just it's no fun.
And it's a requirement.
You don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice. And many people think like, oh, they didn't cash the check. They didn't cash the check. You don't have a choice. You've got to follow those regulatory rules, and it's often overlooked. So
I have
should always look for a company that brings that up.
Yeah. I have one more question. It is, what is the most popular redemption choice?
Yeah. So the most popular redemption choice does vary, but we do see anything that is more instant, right? I tend to be very focused on, what gives them that immediate gratitude, right? So a couple of ways that we're seeing that being done today is whether it's a virtual MasterCard, that's one option, or an immediate transfer to a bank account. Anything that's more immediate and digital is preferred. I think the check request and something that needs to go potentially in the mail or et cetera may be becoming less and less important, but I tend to lean toward that immediacy piece. John, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. If someone gets an email, they want to be able to check right then and there. I want this going to my Apple Wallet, or I want, it ACH to me right now, right? They want to.
Yeah.
Most people don't even want to wait for a gift card or a check. They just want to be able to select it, not have to worry about it, and be like, okay, it's my wallet. I'll have the credit, and I can spend it as I choose right then and there, not lose track of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And there's lots of ways to do that now. So
Yeah, that's true.
I do want to say to the audience, thank you for attending our webinar. And we do offer several resources at ombi.com. And if you want to see that we have more webinars, we have case studies, we have videos. So just something to educate yourself if you're trying to figure this out or not sure who to partner with. And you're also available to reach out to us via email or by contact us on our website. So I do want to thank you all. Thank you, the speakers. You guys were great, and we really appreciate your time and energy that you put into presenting today. So thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.